Year one of President Donald Trump's second chapter in the White House, the promises, the policies, the controversies, and the impact so far. Our exclusive WPBF 25 News political analysts look at it all and at the year ahead, including the November midterms. Let's go on the record.
From WPBF 25, this is On the Record with Todd McDermott.
Good morning. Just over a year ago, Donald Trump returned to the White House as president, promising dramatic and in many ways instant change in the lives of Americans. It has been undeniably impactful and a tumultuous 12 months. Here to break it all down, our exclusive WPBF 25 News political analyst. It's Jeff Atwater, former state lawmaker and former chief financial officer of Florida, former Congressman Ron Klein. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. I want to say Happy New Year, but we're almost a month in, so we won't do that. Again, the White House has put forth a lot of policies. A lot has changed in the last year. There's a lot ahead. I do feel we first need to address what's been going on in Minneapolis with immigration enforcement, because it's been such an issue for the last several weeks. And I really want to, rather than take a side on this to analyze it, I just want your opinions on whether this can be a turning point when it comes to either enforcement or perhaps a bipartisan effort to, Jeff, I'll start with you, to turn the temperature down on this. There seems to have been a groundswell of that since this second fatal shooting.
Absolutely, and I think you saw that today. The president communicating that he has spoken to the governor of Minnesota, and the changes he's already made to personnel that are going to be on site. So I think they're looking for a way now to try to find a way forward in some level of partnership, at least one that would be really bringing this the temperature down and trying to get to an effective place.
I think, Ron, that when it comes to enforcement, the White House had a real feather in its cap for what's happened at the southern border. Americans from every stripe are happy that the southern border has closed, and the polling shows that. However, when it comes to the way immigration enforcement has been carried out, that seems to undermine a lot of that success. But does the White House want to acknowledge that? Is this the sign that they need to change?
Well, first of all, I would acknowledge closing the border effectively gets an A+ for that, okay? Taking criminals out of the United States that were here illegally, if he had stuck with that, probably would have gotten high marks for that too. But that's not what's happened. This has become Stephen Miller's view of immigration, that all immigrants, not to mention Donald Trump making comments about Somalis are garbage and those are over the top. That's not what we expect out of a president. We expect presidents to speak above the fray, speak to people, do it in a way which you can accomplish something. There was an issue with immigration, but the enforcement has been over the top, and unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot of trust right now. The fact that he made some phone calls today is good, but he's been tearing down Tim Walz, who's the governor of the state, and others in vicious ways. So I hope this can turn the temperature down, because the American public does not want this level of treatment of American citizens at a minimum.
I'm going to make both of you talk for a whole segment about the midterms, but I want to just for a minute go to them. And Jeff, your opinion, does this immigration issue and the way it's been transformed since the president retook office, does this have a possibility of a hangover among independent voters 10 months ahead? It's a long time, but could this be a hangover for the Republican Party?
Todd, I think it could be, but I think really, I do think the moves today really were a clear message that that's just not what they want. They want this on the economy. They want this on the other accomplishments. So absolutely, I think you're going to see every effort now to move beyond this. Still press on with the enforcement, but in a way that is not this confrontational place with this kind of coverage.
All right, I want to move on to other areas, and this is very wide open. There has been so much impact in this first year of the new Trump presidency. If I were to ask you, Ron, the biggest single impact, is it economic? Is it foreign policy? What do you think is the biggest single policy impact we've seen in a year?
Well, I think the biggest impact that the public cares about is affordability. And they feel like the president has not given it the level of attention to help bring prices down. It's tough. It's not an easy thing. And presidents only have so much control. But he campaigned on the fact that, I'm going to do that day one. Hasn't happened. People still feel it. And parts of the economy are doing just fine. People who are well off are doing just fine. But a lot of people can't afford the groceries or the health care or all those kinds of things not working. I would say in the long term, foreign policy and the and I served on foreign affairs, so I'm very familiar with our foreign policy in many parts of the world. We've walked away from some very traditional alliances that have been very beneficial to the United States. Sure, we've put a lot into our foreign policy over the years, but just walking away from friends and allies and sort of giving a tip of the hat to Vladimir Putin, if we don't think China's watching these kinds of things, which is really also a different kind of threat to the United States, I think there's some very, very long bad impact to Donald Trump's policies on foreign policy.
Well, Jeff, I'll give you the same question. It can be positive or negative, but the single biggest impact you think coming out of the White House during this first year?
I do think Ron's point that it's very difficult on the economy to get things moving as quickly as you need to with the midterm coming. But I do think that's the biggest, that really is the biggest success. Inflation is down, real wages are up, energy is down. But I think any day's coverage as to world events, it is going to have the public thinking, are you focused on this enough? Where I believe it's going to take just a little bit more time, I believe it's definitely on the right track, and hopefully by summer, if the Republicans are seeking for this to make a difference, it'll begin to show more and more.
I've got about 30 seconds, and I want to ask you, Jeff, is it a change in perception they need to make among the public to have more success?
You know, Todd, that's every politician says the press isn't fair. It's really better than it looks. We heard that all the way leading up to the last election. You've got to trust people where they are at. And right now they do feel like affordability is still an issue. So there is more to be done. But I think all the trajectory is to keep talking about where it's headed. Inflation down, real wages up, buying power is up, gas below $3. It's on its way, and they just need to keep focused on that.
All right, you used the phrase more to be done, and there's more to be done here. Because we have several more minutes. We're going to take a break. On the record, we'll return in a moment.
You're watching On the Record on WPBF 25.
We are back with our exclusive political analyst to talk about year one of the new Trump presidency and a look ahead in the year ahead. We're already about a month into this new year. I do want to go back to the economy because we had just spoken about affordability. The tariff question is such a big issue. The president unveiled a tariff plan in April. It has changed. It has morphed. There was a declared trade war. Then there was a back off. It's hard to analyze all of it. But the first question I have is, Ron, I'll start with you. Do you believe the tariffs have lived up to what the White House promised as far as a positive economic impact on this country?
No, I don't. Tariffs have never worked well, especially the kind of tariff they're talking about, just across the board on allies and friends. And there are places in the world that, we're never going to produce some of the kinds of products that Americans consume. It just is not cost effective, or maybe our climate can't grow those types of products, coffee, things like that. And yet, we're punishing countries that are suppliers and friends of ours. Plus, most important thing of all, in terms of affordability, 90-some% plus of tariffs are paid by U.S. companies and consumers. It just passes right back through to us. Sure, you could argue 10 years from now, maybe there'll be some manufacturing that comes back here. There doesn't seem to be any real indication that that kind of thing is going on.
But on the flip side, Jeff, there were a lot of predictions that putting tariffs in place would cause inflation to skyrocket and that it would decimate the economy. I don't think, while there is that affordability issue that we spoke of and we'll be talking about all year leading up to the midterms, I don't think anybody could really argue that the tariffs have been as damaging as the critics made them out to be once they were put in place.
Todd, I think that's accurate. There's a small piece of the inflation that we're experiencing today that probably builds in a little bit of that tariff. But I agree with you. I think that was absorbed primarily by those who were absorbing it before passing along to the consumer. And that's not sustainable for the long haul, but I do think it's going to pass, and I don't think you're going to see the continuation of talk of tariffs and with a midterm on the way. And I think the tariffs are really, the bigger picture was, can we find a way to bring back the types of manufacturing in tech, in pharmaceuticals, in those kinds of things that I think the president was right on, and whether this is going to take far longer than his first year to ever prove that out, and in fact, far beyond his first term.
All right.
Or this term.
I had more tariff questions.
And more to say.
Because, among other things, the tariffs are the power of Congress. And we've got a Supreme Court that still hasn't ruled on whether these tariffs are even valid. So it's kind of two questions. The one is, Ron, I'll ask you, is the Supreme Court going to uphold the president's power to impose tariffs, which is not the history of the U.S., it is the power of the purse with Congress. And what about Congress taking that power back? And I assume, being a former member of Congress, you don't like to see when that body gives up its power to the executive branch, no matter who's there.
That's right, and a tariff is a tax. That's the whole underpinning here. I mean, it's a tax. It's a tax. It's a tax on the product. It's a tax on bringing something in. It doesn't matter even who pays for it. I think that it is paid for by the American consumer, and whether it has a broader impact, it's going to take time for it to all kick in. The other thing with the way the tariffs are being played out is it's been used as an offensive tool every other day. And it's on Greenland. It's on Venezuela. It's on Iran. Listen, it's a tool that I think is, we're focusing on the American economy. We want the American economy to be strong. We all want more jobs, but there's different ways to do it. Historically, studying tariffs, it's never worked out well, going back to the beginning of the last century. And as Congress, of course, Congress does have that right to control taxes.
I am actually, the one country left out was Brazil, and the 50% tax to get a friend of the president released from prison, former leader of Brazil. But Jeff, in the long run, you mentioned it, but do you think that by the time we get to November midterms, that tariffs just aren't something we'll be talking about?
I think that we talked about in TV ads, but I don't think you're going to see it realistically being embedded in what people are still talking about, cost drivers. Will it be talked about as an affordability issue in a political advertisement? You bet it will be. But I don't think, if you're looking at the numbers, which is not something everybody does, they're a very small piece of inflation is right now being tagged to tariffs.
All right, I just have about a minute left of this segment, but I want to just go to another subject very quickly. That would be the DOGE cuts led by Elon Musk. We saw the numbers apparently are in the several 100,000 federal employees have left the workforce. Is there going to be any midterm impact on that, Ron?
Well, again, I think that if you think about the role that some of these people play, you could always say that you should get rid of some of the people that aren't producing, but it wasn't even that kind of approach. Go look at, in any business, you go look and say, who's not performing? If I have to cut back, I'm going to see who's not performing and cut those people and maybe eliminate part of your workforce. That wasn't the case here. They were just eliminating whole departments.
Jeff, what do you think as far as impact on the American people and whether it influences a vote in November?
I don't think it will. I think again, I think it was a measure that all of us could agree that the debt to the current growth rate of economic activity is horrific in the country. It has to come down. Spending has to come down, or you have to find the balance some way. So DOGE, I think, conceptually reduced the size of our government, right? I think what people are going to argue about is the process by what it took place.
And the impact.
And that obviously is something that goes with a lot of the policy pronouncements we've seen and what's been carried out during this first year. I keep hinting at the midterms. Let's talk more about the midterms in the next segment. We'll be right back. All right, as promised, we'll talk about midterm elections. It is a long way away. The norm is the president's party loses seats, sometimes the majority in the House, perhaps the Senate. A tougher road to hoe, I think, for the minority party this time around. But how would you, Jeff, I'll start with you. How would you characterize the president's relationship? He has had a pretty firm hold on the GOP here in this term, maybe even more so than the first term. But do you expect to see pivoting in swing districts in the coming months?
I think it always happens that way, Todd. I think he came in with all those 7, border state, what you call the up for grab states. And so I think, yes, he came in with a lot of people saying, I've got to stick with this line. And I believe, again, people who are comfortable with conceptually what he has wanted to accomplish economically. And but I'd certainly, in swing districts, people are going to have to do, and he knows that. Everyone knows that. They're going to have to do what their constituency is expecting them to be doing as they come to that midterm.
All right, I have a question for Ron. This goes back to your time in the House, because there's been a lot of criticism that this GOP-controlled Congress really has been a rubber stamp for the president. Obviously, there have been a lot of executive orders, too, that have nothing to do with Congress. But back in the 111th Congress, Barack Obama won by 9 million votes, 365 electoral votes. When you started your second term, Barack Obama got about everything he wanted, including a very controversial, at the time, health care policy, the ACA, Affordable Care Act. Is it a misnomer to say that this is a rubber stamp Congress? You control both houses, you do what the president wants, and that's the way it goes?
Well, I would say the difference between Donald Trump and Barack Obama is Donald Trump takes no prisoners in the sense that if you vote against him or you speak against him, he will take you out. And he makes that very clear. So he has very strong control over the Republicans, and many of them, and my friends who I've spoken to behind the scenes, have been frustrated because they don't agree with some of the things. And in fact, they voted against things like tariffs they would have never supported before, or dealing with Russia. These were things that the president is on the opposite side of the way they've dealt with things in the past. Anyway, they've done what they're doing, and I think he's had pretty good control. But I agree. I think, listen, the reality is in a very strong president, he's a very strong president personality-wise. He's controversial. He doesn't take prisoners, if you will. He's very direct with his comments. So I think there's going to be a lot of people in the independent group that make a difference in these tight races that probably will lean out toward electing some Democrats, particularly in the House. I think the House is pretty much going to change.
I've got to jump into redistricting because obviously the Florida legislature, Jeff, will be the next round here. Governor DeSantis is pushing for redistricting. First of all, as a former member of that body, state legislature, would you expect this to be widely seen as the right move for Florida to change the congressional map here mid-decade to perhaps pick up a seat or two for Republicans? Obviously, they have very strong control already, but do you see that happening?
I have no doubt it's happening. And I'll leave up for who might agree or disagree for others to, but I think clearly within the party itself that they would say, this has been happening around the country for decades, and there's nobody representing any Republican voice in the Northeast. So do I think it's good for our country to be heading this direction? No, but I absolutely believe that Governor DeSantis is going to have a special session. There will be new lines.
And what do you think the impact will be, Ron, of that in terms of what we see in congressional races? Will we see some Democrats that we know of lose their seats with?
That's the way you do it. I mean, you're going to assert one Democrat against another. That's how you pick up a seat, because they'll just jam more Democrats into a single seat. They'll probably try to do that here in Broward and Palm Beach County, and they may try to do it in Miami, and they may try to do it in Central Florida. That's how you come up with it. I mean, it's already so one-sided, over 2-1 anyway, in terms of Republicans versus Democrats in a state that is maybe slightly more Republican than Democrat in terms of actual, the people in the state. But I would agree that, listen, I think it's the worst thing, and I would say this as a Democrat or Republican. When I see in Congress and in state legislature, you have no reason to find the middle ground if you're in a seat that's either wildly Democrat or wildly Republican. And what do we need in government right now? The ability to work things out, compromise, find middle ground. There's less and less people in those kinds of seats.
Jeff, what do you think the message is for the Republican Party as we approach the campaign season? Obviously, the president is not on the ballot, but he is on the ballot. What do you foresee? And I know we're looking into the future because we don't know what the next few months hold, but overall, what would you say the message would be for Republicans to maintain control of Congress?
They're going to have to talk about the economy. They're going to have to talk about affordability. They're going to have to talk about real wages up, inflation down, buying power for the household up. That's going to be the focus. And I think that if they get off that, it's going to be even tougher than it already is.
All right, Ron, what do you think?
I think that Democrats have to continue to talk about affordability, because that is a theme that they can accept. Healthcare is a big deal for many Americans, and it's not just the Obamacare. It's going to be the broader market that continues to go up in price with no solution. And last thing, I think just seeing what's out there, chaos. I think there's just a message of, do you want to check and balance? Americans like middle. They don't like either party in total control. And I think they like when there's split government. So the notion of this chaotic environment and finding a way to sort of say, at least if you have one party or one body, the House maybe, against the president, maybe there's a way of sort of drawing the two together as opposed to just running roughshod over the other.
All right. You guys want to talk for another half hour? Because we can, but we can't do it here. Let's wait till next month and talk again.
Very good.
Exclusive political analyst Ron Klein, Jeff Atwater, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your expertise. And it's going to be a long year of politics ahead. This is just the beginning. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us for On the Record this week. Have a wonderful Sunday. Hope to see you again next week.